Holland Cotter called Patty Chang one of the most consistently exciting artists of her generation in 2005 when she had a solo show at the New Museum in New York. She's also shown at the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts in in San Francisco, and the MCA Chicago, the Moderna Museet in Sweden, Stockholm. She's had solo shows at galleries in New York and Paris and Berlin and other places. Patty Chang.
On January 5th, 2009, rioting broke out in Urumqi, which is the capital of Xinjiang province in China. And that was after days of tensions between the Uyghurs, who are the minority who've lived in that region for thousands of years, and the Han Chinese, who are the dominant ethnic group of China. And the clashes began when the police confronted a protest march of the Uyghurs to demand an investigation of a dispute between Uyghur and Han workers at this toy factory. And 2 Uyghur men were killed, and 120 other people were injured in the violence at the factory that day. And many Uyghurs believed that the government did too little to investigate the incident, and anger about the government's lack of action was the spark leading to the violent riots. So almost 200 people died, mostly of Han descent. About 1,600 were injured, most of them Han civilians. And in retaliation, the Han, being angry, attacked the Uyghurs over the next few days. And many Uyghurs in Urumqi said that the government had severely undercounted the Uyghur casualties and stood aside as those deaths occurred. So in 1930, Swedish explorer Sven Hedin was commissioned by the Chinese government in Nanjing to find a road accessible by car through the harsh desert of western China, through the province of Xinjiang, that would link eastern China with Central Asia and, by extension, Europe, thereby creating a modern highway along the ancient Silk Road. Hedin's personal project at that time was trying to prove a theory that he had about Lake Lop-Nor. Lake Lop-Nor is a terminal lake, meaning that the water runs into it, but it doesn't run out. In prehistoric times, it was the ocean that separated the Indian subcontinent from the rest of Asia. And on different historical maps of this region that were mapped by the early explorers, Lake Lop-Nor was either mismapped or mapped in different locations, or named something else entirely. Hedin believed that Lop-Nor was what was termed a wandering lake, that it would change locations and flow somewhere else due to silt built up from deforestation. He predicted on his first visit to the region in 1900 that the lake would sometime return to its old location. And when he returned in 1930, that's the exact thing that happened. So it's interesting to look at geographic mapping as a way to contain history, and how bodies of water can shift and upend intricate histories that are built up around them. A geological body that shifts location displaces and calls into question the systems and the abilities that rely on it. In October last year, I traveled to Xinjiang province in China, and I met with a young Uyghur woman named Numija.
睡莲故事在这个我讲一遍我。
Can you turn down the light?
不是那个狼从沙漠出来，不是，是什么？
Can I have the audio up a little bit?
别的民族都杀死了维族，维族最后有一个人，拿一个吃了那个狼去了那些人，最后一个人把狼吃了。最后一个人什么？别的民族都把那个维族人都杀死了， 最后留下一个人，那一个人把那个狼救回来。
他跟狼结婚了。
就是
啊。
他跟狼结婚了，然后吧，就是现在的名字都是狼的孩子，那个狼是木狼。
木狼。所以这样来说，那个狼是不是女的？
就是。
So I asked Munira if she was to write a word in Uyghur, what she would write, and the word that she said she would write was wolf, which here in the picture you can see she's starting to construct with headscarves. 'Mitsu, who wrote the theme song to Women in the Dunes, came up with this melodic phrase that he often used later in his life in his compositions, and he called this the sea of tonality. And it's composed of the notes E flat, which in German notation is E Esse, or S E A is the notes. So there's consistently a sense of loss, or what is missing in between, longed for, indefinable, misplaced, and erased. And my practice comes out of performance where things unfold in a process. My early performances were narrative told in images that related to personal histories and cultural identities. The narrative slowly became implied, and the performances became much more sculptural and related to limitations of the body and the technologies that I use to tell them. The other thing that seems consistent to me is a feeling of touch, a connection, an emotion, the sense of the haptic, the concrete. And perhaps it's this ambivalent paradox between a sense of emptiness and concreteness that is central to my work. In the most recent works, I've been interested in how cultural knowledge becomes produced, appropriated, adapted. I'm also interested in mistranslation and the relation to subconscious desires and imaginary geographies. In all of these, there is an awareness of the subjective actions of myself as a performer and sometimes an instigator. There is what I'd like to call an embodiment of making. This relates to performances of the body, making of films, taking journeys, being influenced by spiritual gurus, entering into collaborations, and presenting to and performing for audience.